Hello, this is Frank from MTG Unlimited, and today I'll be bringing you another standard deck tech. Today I will be showing you a mono blue deck that has re-emerged for Journey Into Nyx Standard. As you can see with all the cards laid out, we're playing 24 lands with 4 Nykthoses. This deck focuses primarily on creatures rather than spells in order to kill your opponent, and also to bring up your devotion for Thessa. So, let's get into cards here. Up first you can see Cloudfin Raptor. It's our first 1-drop creature. It's a 0/1 flyer with Evolve. This card is a great 1-drop for this deck. It gets us right out of the gate quickly. It's a flyer and has Evolve too, so when you put out your creatures in the next few turns, it's going to pump this guy up and you're going to be able to swing in the air for unblockable damage at your opponent. Overall, this is a great card for this deck. That's why I'm playing it as a 4-of. The next card you'll see is Judge's Familiar. It's our other 1-drop flyer. Its ability is really good for this deck, especially against other decks like Mono Black and Burn, because when they try to either deal you the final blow with a burn spell or take out your Master of Waves with removal like Bile Blight, this is a really good card because then you can just sack it and counter that spell. This is definitely a 4-of in this deck. It's really good. It also pumps up your devotion by 1, which is also very good. In addition, it's a flyer. It bumps up Cloudfin Raptor, so overall this is a great card for this deck. The next card you'll see is Rapid Hybridization. It's our first instant in the deck. This is a really good card for this deck, especially since it can take out things like Desecration Demon, Polokranos, and Stormbreath Dragon. It just wipes the board in standard. It really helps you keep your creature base up. It protects you from flyers that can swing in for a lot of damage. It also protects you against monstrous creatures like I was talking about before. Giving them a 3/3, well, it's definitely better than a 4/4 with Stormbreath or a 6/6 with Desecration Demon. And it also takes out other Master of Waves, which takes out their devotion and all their elementals. It's really a great card for this deck. Playing it as a 4-of because it's such a great removal spell. The next creature you'll see is our first 2-drop. It's Frostburn Weird. Even though he's a 1/4, he has a pump ability which gives him +1/-1 until end of turn. You can pump him as many times as you want until he's a 3/1. He's really good because you can swing for quite a bit of damage in the early turns, or you can just have a nice blocker to have that can easily block any card in the first 3 or 4 turns of the game. Also, his devotion is 2, which really gets you that much closer to activating Thessa. He's a great 4-of in this deck, and I highly recommend it. The next creature you'll see is Tidebinder Mage. It's our other 2-drop creature. He's also really good in this deck just because he taps down all the red and green creatures. He really tends to stall out aggro decks, especially red deck wins, by tapping their Prophetic Flame Speakers or any other good red creatures that they have swinging in the early turns. Really stalls them out and lets you build up your board presence to come back and swing later in the next few turns. He also can do green creatures by tapping down things like Polokranos, and he can also tap down Stormbreath, which is really good because then you're not taking any big flyers in the air. He's just a great card for this deck overall, really goes with the control theme, and his 2 devotion gets you even that much closer to activating Thessa. The next card you'll see is our other instant spell in this deck, Cyclonic Rift. It's really good for this deck. It's a good removal spell, especially when it bounces things like Polokranos and Stormbreath and Desecration Demon. It's really good. It can stall out the game pretty well and let you build up your board and swing in quickly to end the game as quickly as possible. It's just overall a great card for this deck. There's not much else to say. Playing it as a 2-of because it's fairly situational, and against the aggro decks, there's really not that much that you can get out with it, so I think it's good as a 2-of in this deck. The next card you'll see in this deck is Veal Spectre. It's our first 3-drop. It's a really good creature for this deck. It really gets your devotion up there for Thessa. The 3 devotion is really huge for this deck. It's really easy to play because we're playing a monocolored deck. Also, since it's a flyer, it can swing in pretty much over every creature in the format, and its ability is really good for this deck, especially against Mono Black or Mono Blue, where you can easily pick up other Veal Spectres and other blue cards that you can play. Overall, it's a great as a 4-of in this deck, and I would highly recommend it. The next card you'll see is the card I've been talking about all day, Thessa. It's a 3-drop god, which is really good, especially since it has Indestructible, and it's going to be pretty much activated as a creature almost all the time, considering that you have so many creatures with 1, 2, or 3 devotion. Overall, it's a great card for this deck. It's a 5/5 on its own, which is just really good. Its ability to scry your upkeep can really make the game for you because you can scry into the cards that you need to draw to win the game quickly. Just great, especially its ability to make creatures unblockable. You can just make Thessa or Master of Waves unblockable, swing for tons of damage, and just end the game as quickly as possible. I would highly recommend it as a 4-of. The next card you'll see is our other win condition in this deck, Master of Waves. It's a 4-drop for a 2/1, which on its own isn't very good. He has protection from red, which really helps against burn. It makes it so your elementals survive. By this point, when you're going to be playing this on like turn 4 or 5, you're going to have quite a bit of devotion out, enough to make at least 4 or 5 elementals. And this is really good. It's a great win condition for this deck. Your opponents won't see this coming, and most of the time they won't be able to stop it. Swinging for 6, 8 plus damage on the next turn is just a great win condition and a great way to end the game. It's a really good as a 4-of, and I would highly recommend it. The next card you'll see is our first Planeswalker. It's Jace, Architect of Thought. He enters with 4 loyalty counters, and his +1 ability is decent, but against aggro decks it's pretty good. You're going to be using that quite a bit. But against almost every other deck, you're going to want to just use him for his -2 ability. Your opponent separates your top 3 cards into 2 piles, so you're always going to get the better pile. There's really not much else to say about him. He's just a great Planeswalker for this deck. Pumps up your devotion. It's great as a 2-of. The last card you'll see is Biden of Thessa. As a 4-drop, it's not that great, but overall it's got a really good ability that allows you to draw. It's got really good synergy with Thessa. And overall, I mean, it's a decent card for this deck. I'd prefer it as a 3 mana costing card, but it's not that bad. That's why I'm playing it as a 2-of. I would still recommend playing it in this deck. It really helps out with your creature base and really helps you end the game pretty quickly. Thanks for watching. If you could please hit that like or subscribe button below, that would be great. Please tell your friends about my channel.